MeMonster.
Chapter 16. Zeeth, Hansen, John, Teddy, come out. The people whose names were called flinched. A man with a mustache stepped forward and spoke. Calling us here without any explanation and telling us to do this and that without any justification, isn't it too much? At the very least, some explanation should be given. Yes, you're right. Oh, really? Iselle said with a grim expression. If you go in there, monsters will appear. You just have to fight them and win. What? Why do we have to fight monsters? That doesn't make any sense. Iselle grabbed the man's wrist and threw him into the rift. The people gasped at the tremendous force coming from her petite figure. You have two choices. Either go on foot or fly. Fight monsters? Even so! The three hesitated, but eventually entered the rift. The door closed. It is unreasonable. Summoned without knowing anything and forced to fight monsters. I know how absurd and unjust this is. Even I wished I had been given at least a little time to prepare. But that would be too good to be true. There is a term called screening in Pick Me Up. As one of the techniques in the game's mechanics, it is the simplest way to classify usable one-star characters. The method is really simple. Just throw the newly obtained one-star characters into the dungeon. By doing that, John, 1 star, has returned to the goddess's embrace. His determination will be remembered forever. The inexperienced heroes who can't adapt to the situation are automatically filtered out. The challenge floor is probably the first floor. On the first floor, a few young goblins armed with old swords appear. They are the lowest of the low-level monsters. Even if the first-level, 1-star characters who know nothing handle it calmly, it can easily be overcome. Teddy, 1 star, has returned to the goddess's embrace. His determination will be remembered forever. If you're unlucky, the entire party may be wiped out, like during the initial 10 draw. But no more death messages are displayed. Fight monsters? We can't do that! We can't! One man sitting on the bench stood up abruptly. Iselle, who was on surveillance duty, disappeared into the rift without showing herself. The man quickly began to move away from the square. You shouldn't go. Jenna blocked his path. She was also the type who suffered and worked hard. Why? Why should I do that? If you leave, what will happen to those people over there? 3 men and women were huddled together near the rift. I don't know. They'll fight and die, I guess. I'm going to run away. How about we escape together? The man grabbed Jenna by her arm. Leave me alone. I can't escape anyway. Seeing how she refused his offer, the man passed by Jenna and tried to open the door to the dormitory. It didn't open. This time, he pulled on the door to the training ground. It was locked. Neither this door nor that door allowed the man entry. Damn it! Damn it! Fuck! The man started banging his head against the wall. After a while, 2 survivors returned. Both of them were young boys, their faces pale like ghosts. Iselle recited the next party's roster in a dull voice. Dika, Deckard, Sigler, Chloe. Ick! The woman whose name was called kneeled. Aaron, who had been tightly closing his eyes in frustration, stood up and approached them. What are you doing? It's not your turn, so get lost. I'll fight with them too. What? Iselle's eyes widened in surprise. Jenna and I were equally astonished. Hey, big brother, were you always like this? You really can't judge a person by seeing him once. I chuckled and said, Iselle, recommend Aaron as a party member. He may still be lacking in actual combat, but he's not bad. But Iselle hesitated for a while, alternating her gaze with me and Aaron, and then disappeared with a poof. Aaron, 1 star, wants to join Party 3. Will you allow it? Yes. If Jenna or I had applied, we would have been rejected. Only Aaron, who was at level 2 and can gain experience even on the first floor, was eligible for this method. Aaron took hold of the hand of the weeping woman who was kneeling and lifted her up, saying, "If we regain our composure and rely on each other, we can survive. Don't worry." Aaron drew the spear from his back at once and then waved it. It was a display of his ability to protect them. He almost twisted his wrist during the process, but they didn't seem to notice it. Their faces were filled with deep relief. "Aaron?" "Yes, Hyungnim. It's good that you're helping, but don't cause us any further trouble in the process." "Understood." Aaron nodded. He seemed to understand the meaning of my words. Aaron entered the rift with the other 4, and the door closed behind them. The only ones left are these 2. I checked the status window of the young man who used to be a carpenter. He had a skill called apprentice carpenter. It seemed like he really was a carpenter. Since anything assigned him to the carpentry workshop already, he would do his part. On the other hand, the man with his head shaved was diligently sweating and cautiously looking around. When our eyes met, he quickly averted his gaze. "Can't they hurry up? I want to eat." Jenna, sitting on a chair, kicked her legs impatiently. I tapped her on the head. "Why did you hit me?" I don't know if she has any awareness or not. The 2 survivors from the first battle were on the verge of death. Jenna quickly glanced in their direction and said, "They'll feel better after eating a delicious meal and resting. Isn't that right?" One of them, who had been keeping his mouth tightly shut, started vomiting. "See? He must be emptying his stomach to eat more." She's turning into a demon. This is a whole new level of indifference. With no messages appearing in front of me, I couldn't help but smile a bit. Noticing that, Jenna whispered softly into my ear, "They succeeded, didn't they?" "What?" "You laughed." "Did I?" "You laughed. I definitely saw it." Jenna whistled as if she was laughing at me. Aaron's group returned. No casualties. The 5 of them went, and all 5 returned. I said, "Aaron, how many goblins did you take care of?" "1. "Good." He understood my intention. I carefully examined the status windows of the 4 individuals. Each of their levels had increased by 1. It meant that they had somehow participated in the battle. In the first battle, when Aaron and the other 3 joined us, Jenna and I fought while the other 3 watched from behind. Eventually, 2 of them ended up as sacrifices in the synthesis facility. I knew what would happen to them, but they wouldn't have understood and didn't feel the need for it. "Is today's schedule finished?" "Just a moment. It seems like it's finished." Isel trailed off. The rift had closed, but the light in the sky was still lit. "You can go back." "Yay!" Jenna was the first to leap up and run towards the dormitory. Aaron approached me with an uneasy expression. "Hyungnim, the sky is still bright." "He's just watching us. Like a god watching over the world. Like a lord inspecting the city." He was observing the process and result of what he had created and achieved. Our voices couldn't be heard. There was no conversation. This waiting room we were in went through layers of filters, with most of it omitted and only a small portion transmitted to the master. Still, to him, this game would feel like another world. I too couldn't forget the excitement from that time. "Do you want to keep standing there all day?" I said to the newbies fidgeting behind me. They hesitated but followed along. They entered the dormitory through the door Jenna had opened. Jenna was sprawled on a leather sofa. She pressed it with her hand and then breathed in the scent of the cushion. For now, I decided to leave her alone. The dormitory had become noticeably more spacious. The living room, which was the first place you saw when you opened the door, had expanded to the point where it could be called a lobby. Even with 11 people, it didn't feel crowded. The floor was covered in soft carpet, and warm light spilled from the fireplace. The facilities have definitely improved. I headed towards the restaurant inside the lobby. A large dining table and chairs were set up between neat interior decorations. There was a kitchen further inside. Display cabinets revealed various cooking utensils, such as knives and ladles. I opened the cabinet below.
In addition to potatoes, there were bottles containing seasonings like salt, sugar, and butter. There were also several types of fruits like apples and grapes. Potatoes are still the main ingredient, huh? Well, it's better than just baked potatoes. It will get better as time goes on. When the weekly dungeon opens, we can personally gather cooking ingredients. I returned to the lobby. I spoke to the man who was sweating profusely. You can cook, right? Yes, I can. Recommended list for cooks. Dolph, 1 star. Dolph, 1 star, as the chef of the restaurant. Do you want to appoint him? Yes. It seemed like anything had the same idea. A message appeared appointing the facility manager. You're in charge of our meals. It's your responsibility now. Responsibility? Why, don't you like it? If you don't, go out and fight like the others. Dolph's complexion turned pale. He bobbed his head up and down. Dolph also witnessed the two who didn't return to the plaza. It's dinner for 11 people. Can you handle it? I'll try my best. Dolph stumbled into the kitchen. We're finally saying goodbye to baked potatoes. Jenna, who had been fidgeting on the sofa, let out a cheer. I looked at the sky again. It seemed like he had no intention of logging out. I couldn't go back to my room like this. If I opened the door to the dormitory, a clearly different place would appear. I didn't want to show any odd signs to anything. Young Nim, isn't it time to talk to them? I was thinking the same. Since dinner is ready, we can do it while eating. As the number of people increased, there were a few necessary items. We need a clock. Han, 1 star, wants a clock in the dormitory. Will you install it? It will consume 3,000 gold. Yes. A pendulum clock appeared in a corner of the lobby. Ah! The woman who saw that scene took a sharp breath. I checked the current time. It was 6:45 p.m., the perfect time. I said, everyone gather around. I will explain the rules of this world. They needed at least some explanation. The waiting room was not a place that functioned solely by one's own power. We took our seats at the dining table, and while later, Dolph came out with the food. It was baked potatoes. Jenna made a disappointed face. Jenna, 1 star, expresses dissatisfaction with the food. Well, it's not my fault. There were no other ingredients. He didn't even peel the skin off the potato. I had to peel it off myself just to take a bite. It had that familiar taste. Han, 1 star, expresses dissatisfaction with the food. Tips. If many heroes express dissatisfaction with the food, try acquiring different ingredients or changing the chef. I sighed. I had a hunch, and it turned out to be true. Dolph didn't have any cooking skills in his status window, but just because there were no relevant skills didn't mean it was impossible. However, it seems he didn't even bother to do a mediocre job. On the contrary, when I quietly observed the other woman, probably in her early 20s, with long black hair tied down, the name displayed in her status window was Chloe. And below that, there was a cooking skill attached to her status window, nice and big.
Chapter 17. Why didn't you say anything when we asked for a cook? Me? Yeah, you. Isn't your name Chloe? Yes. From now on, you'll be the cook. A message appeared. Recommended cook list. Chloe, 1 star. Would you like to appoint Chloe, 1 star, as the cook? The current cook will be relieved of their position. Yes. Well done. Hold on, I'll go and make it again. Lying again when you don't even know how to do it? I could have praised him for being quick-witted, but it was better not to lie if you were going to get caught anyway, especially if it would cause such a fuss. Everyone, including Jenna, turned a cold gaze toward him. That gaze only intensified when Chloe brought out the potato dishes. She presented a variety: refreshing potato salad with sauce, buttered roasted potatoes, crispy potato fries, and a warm stew. It's delicious. I didn't know potatoes could have so many different flavors. It's because of the variety of seasonings, Chloe replied, bowing her head shyly at Jenna's praise. Dolph remained silent, crouching in a corner. I spoke up. Eat while you listen. I won't repeat this twice. And when the newcomers arrive, tell them the same thing you heard today, unless you want to end up dead from blabbering. I explained the basic rules of this world to everyone gathered in the hall. the existence of the Master, how we could only survive by fulfilling missions, and how, with each mission completed, we would ascend to higher floors. When we reached the 100th floor, we could be liberated. I hesitated for a moment, but also mentioned synthesis. It was something they would learn about soon enough anyway. Is that true? Whether you believe it or not is up to you, but you'll be responsible for your choice. People seemed anxious, but somehow were convinced. At least no one was causing a commotion or going berserk. If you prepare well, you can survive. I had never fought before coming here either, so everyone stay strong, Jenna said energetically. Are we going to do different jobs? A young carpenter asked, raising his hand. You and Chloe are the carpenter and cook, respectively. You'll help us in different ways. I can also do carpentry, Dolph tried to say, but I cut him off. If your lie gets exposed again, should I recommend you as the first sacrifice for synthesis? It could be a good lesson. Dolph kept his mouth shut after that. It's true that non-combat roles have a higher chance of survival than combat roles, but there's no room for complacency. Positions are limited, and there's no guarantee a hero with better skills won't be summoned. If you're pushed out of your position, only one thing awaits. Therefore, even non-combat roles had to constantly improve their skills. Master, would you like to end the connection? Yes. Then goodbye. Satisfied to some extent, anything also left the waiting room. After the meal, we distributed the rooms in the lodging. This time, I decided to stay here instead of my original room. There were signs that anything's connection time was increasing. I didn't know if the Master could see that room or not, but it didn't hurt to be cautious. I didn't want to attract attention in a strange way. By the way, I didn't know Oppa would care about others, Jenna smiled. How can you judge a person based on such a short time? I have good eyes, even at a glance. It's obvious. Well, this will be the first. Due to the system of pick-me-up, it wasn't possible for a small number of people to climb all the floors, so we took minimal measures. As long as they didn't all die, they would have to pass on what needed to be done to the newcomers. The next day, the dull daily life gradually changed. When I woke up in the morning, Chloe was busy peeling potatoes in the kitchen. Her eyes were red, as if she had cried all night. Shortly after, Jenna came out. Except for the three of us, no one else had come to the lobby yet. We had breakfast and headed to the training ground. The training ground, now at level 2, had noticeably expanded. If the previous training ground was the size of an auditorium, it now looked more like a playground. The straw dummies were replaced with wooden carved ones. There were also shooting ranges for archery, sand pits, and obstacle courses. Aaron, who had arrived at the training ground before us, was already training. He was swinging his spear and thrusting it into the air. Jenna and I joined the training afterwards. We continued training from morning till evening, eating potatoes baked at the training ground for lunch. A few people arrived at the training ground, but no one directly joined the training yet. They seemed to understand the instructions, but hadn't fully grasped the reality. In the evening, the Master logged in. This time, the interval was 1 day. Compared to the minimum 3 days intervals before, it had significantly decreased. Considering the time difference between the waiting room and the real world, it seemed like the Master had logged in during free time, such as morning or lunch. Anything's goal this time was not us, but the newcomers. Aaron couldn't join the party today, and one person didn't come back. The next day, as expected, people gathered at the training ground. "Please teach us how to fight," a boy with a small build said, bowing. It seemed like the same thing had happened a few days ago. I observed the new recruits in the training ground. All 3 were boys of a similar age. One person died yesterday, so there were 7 left. Excluding the cook and carpenter, there were 5, but only 3 of them were here. I didn't know where the other 2 were. I'm tired of fighting Aaron. Let's change things up. I threw a wooden sword to each of the new recruits standing awkwardly. For now, come at me all at once. Since I couldn't use a real sword against inexperienced opponents, I picked up a suitable wooden sword myself. My basic method of training in weapon skills was to study techniques against straw dummies and practice them with Aaron. It included not only simple blocking and striking movements with a shield or sword, but also more challenging actions such as deflecting or parrying attacks. Now, multi-opponent sparring was needed, not just one-on-one. In most situations, I had to face multiple enemies. I couldn't do it before because there weren't enough people, but now I finally had the opportunity. All three were excited to join in. In the middle of the training session, I also allowed Aaron to join to make it harder. Han, 1 star's low-level swordsmanship, has increased to level 4. Thanks to that, I raised my skill by 1 level. As if someone directly injected it into my mind, I gradually began to feel the flow of swordsmanship. It was one of the oddities of this world. A few more days passed. "I'm coming!" a boy with a shaved head shouted, thrusting his wooden sword at me. I easily dodged it. Then 2 other boys next to him swung their swords. I swung my sword widely and parried both of their attacks.
Their swords were so slow it was almost boring. But not long ago, I was in the same state. Now, the gap had widened. Every time my sword moved, one of them flinched. "As expected, Hyungnim is strong," one of the 3 boys, Jeed, said. The 3 boys, Zeeth, Hansen, and Dika, were all under 20. They must have heard how Aaron addressed me and started calling me Hyungnim, or older brother. "It's because my level is higher, kid. You'll find out soon enough." All 3 of them were at level 2. The difference in stats between me and them was at least 7 or 8, a gap greater than that between a child and an adult. However, if it were just a difference in strength, it wouldn't have been this overwhelming. I was far superior in additional abilities such as visual acuity and reaction speed. Perhaps it was due to agility. And above all, the skills. An unknown force was compensating for my swordsmanship. The cause was undoubtedly the low-level swordsmanship I had learned. I could instinctively feel where to move the sword and shield, as well as my legs and arms. It's quite absurd. If it were Earth, such results could never have been achieved in such a short period of time. On the other side of the training ground, Jenna was running while shooting her bow. Every time she released an arrow, it pierced the humanoid target more than 30 meters away. That girl had already reached level 5 in low-level archery. Her low-level dagger technique had also reached level 2. In contrast, Aaron was struggling. He reached level 2 in spear technique a while back, but hadn't made any further progress. He was the first to come to the training ground and the last to return to the lodging, but that didn't mean new skills would suddenly appear. The 3 boys in front of me each achieved level 1 in swordsmanship. These guys were like withered bean sprouts when they first arrived, but now they were swinging their weapons as if they were born with them. Maybe because they were around the same age, they started calling each other Hyung or Dongseng and even showed a sense of unity. Well, it's better than being crouched down like the others. Several days had passed, but the remaining 2 still hadn't come to the training ground. It seemed like they were trying to find the exit. I'll say it again. It's a futile effort. But I don't even care. Figure it out on your own. A few days later, another free 10 draw was conducted. This time, I didn't need to step forward. Aaron and the 3 boys took care of it themselves. Especially Aaron, who volunteered to participate, greatly reduced the sacrifice in the first battle. Only 1 person died during the sorting process. "The number of people is increasing," Jenna said, while sucking on a candy. It was a stick candy made by hardening sugar water. Chloe made it for Jenna, who wanted a snack. I was leaning against the sofa in the lobby. Now staying in the lodging had become familiar. If I didn't think about going to my room, even if I opened the door, it wouldn't appear. Jenna chewed and swallowed the remaining candy. "By the way, why doesn't the master go to the 5th floor? It's been quite a while since we cleared the 4th floor." I expected that question would come up. It had been quite a while since we cleared the 4th floor, the area with harpies and goblins. So far, the main party, me, Jenna, and Aaron, had only been conquering the 4th floor. The other sub-parties were still staying on the 1st or 2nd floor. Of course we're not going. The difficulty sharply rises with every multiple of 5 floors. It's a kind of boss stage. If anything did his research, he would know that sending us to the 5th floor like this is dangerous. We were lacking in levels and equipment, not to mention the number of people. We need 2 more members. A party can have a maximum of 5 members. The candidates to join our party are probably two of the three boys. They seem to adapt quickly, maybe because they were young. They showed enthusiasm and eagerness. Zeeth even said with a smile that he thought this kind of life was better than farming or hunting. We'll see if he keeps thinking that. The tutorial of Pick Me Up is over, but the practical tutorial is not yet finished. Today, Aaron told the newcomers that if they keep their wits about them, it's not a big deal, and they can definitely survive. So far, that's true, up to the 4th floor. I know how devilishly difficult it becomes afterwards. How many deaths await us in the battles ahead, even after the sorting and repeated training at the training ground. I can't guarantee with 100% certainty that I can survive. Even below the 10th floor, there were countless trap missions with extremely low success rates, such as survival missions. But I didn't feel like telling Jenna this fact.
Chapter 18. The Master's logins had become more frequent, catching everyone's attention. Almost every day the sky would light up, signaling his connection to the world. That meant he was logging in 3 times a day in Earth time. Sometimes he would log out without doing anything. But other times, Han, Jenna, Aaron, and I, the members of Party 1, would take charge on the lower levels. He even sent out sub-parties after finishing the screening. During the second round of 10 free draws, we struck gold by acquiring a blacksmith and a tanner, which kickstarted the operation of the equipment forge. And guess who was the lucky one chosen as the blacksmith? Yours truly, Han. The reason was simple. I had managed to create a C-grade weapon before, using only the most basic materials. I may not have had any blacksmithing skills to brag about, but the algorithm saw something in me and assigned me to the forge. After a series of epic failures, blowing up the materials about 10 times, I was finally sent to my rightful place. The production process was fully automated, left entirely in the hands of skilled craftsmen. Luckily, our newly arrived blacksmith knew the ins and outs of weapon forging. Working in collaboration with the tanner and the carpenter, they began crafting various equipment. The main focus was on producing shoddy E-grade swords and wooden shields. These items were distributed to the fresh-faced heroes who had recently joined our ranks, significantly boosting their chances of survival. As for the main party, we received the better gear. Aaron and I were fitted with E-grade leather armor, while Jenna was equipped with the trusty short dagger as her secondary weapon. Admittedly, the quality wasn't top-notch, but it beat walking around in our birthday suits, so we made the best of it. Unfortunately, the 3 who hadn't contributed much were eliminated through synthesis. They were the ones attempting to escape without ever revealing themselves in the training grounds. Among them was Dolph, who had deceived us all on his very first day here. With the synthesis completed, the Party 1 members each gained 1 level. I reached level 8, Jenna reached level 6, and Aaron leveled up to 4. Han Israt, 1 star, level 8. XP, 24 of 60. Class, Novice. Strength, 20 of 20. Intelligence, 12 of 12. Stamina, 20 of 20. Agility, 20 of 20. Skills, Novice Swordsmanship, level 4. Pain Resistance, level 1. Composure, level 1. Although my intelligence took a hit, my strength, stamina, and agility saw significant improvement. Thankfully, it seemed that the intelligence stat had no bearing on my actual smarts. I wasn't eager to become a complete dullard after all. Let's form a party. Time to drag and drop heroes. Zeeth, 1 star, joins Party 1. Hansen, 1 star, joins Party 1. Finally, 2 of the 3 amigos joined the main party. With their addition, Party 1 reached its maximum capacity. Anything wasted no time and promptly opened a portal, seemingly eager to put us to the test. We're counting on you, big brothers. Relax, take it easy. Aaron gave Zeeth and Hansen a friendly pat on the shoulders. I couldn't help but chuckle. Look how far he had come. So, are we up for another round with those harpies? You bet. I'm starting to grow weary of this routine, though, Jenna said, yawning, a hint of boredom on her face. Once we conquered a floor, attempting it again meant facing the same mission. We'd already clashed with harpies and goblins more than 3 times. Floor 4. Mission type: subjugation. Objective: wipe out the enemies. 3 level 4 goblins, 2 level 6 harpies. Same place, same foes. The goblins and harpies spotted us, their eyes gleaming with anticipation. Erin stood a few paces behind me, while Jenna, her bow armed with arrows, positioned herself a bit further away. Zeeth and Hansen moved closer, flanking me on both sides. Their weapons of choice were swords and shields. Don't get flustered. Maintain formation. Yes! Both of them responded with unwavering determination. Good! None of them were afflicted with the fear status effect. Before joining our ranks, they must have rolled through the lower floors, so they weren't complete greenhorns when it came to real combat. Ka! 2 harpies swooped in from opposite directions. Jenna abstained from launching a preemptive strike. Instead, she stood watchfully, observing the unfolding events, ready to act when needed. Hayat! Zeeth and Hansen initiated a counterattack. They swung their swords, skillfully shielding their vital points with their shields. The strikes carried considerable force. Zeeth's blade deeply cut through the harpy's wing membrane. In that fleeting moment, Erin's swift thrust found an opening. The harpy let out a shriek as the spear pierced deep into his chest. Keck! Jenna's arrow found its mark, hitting the goblin square in the forehead just as it was about to assault Hansen. Zeeth and Hansen steadfastly maintained their defense, prioritizing guarding and retaliating. Erin's thrusts and Jenna's arrows exploited the enemy's vulnerabilities. We're getting the hang of this. The core principles of formation were coming into play. At this level, we demonstrated combat effectiveness beyond our individual capabilities. The 3 goblins and 2 harpies met their doom without mounting a proper counteroffensive. Stage cleared. Zeeth, 1 star, and Hansen, 1 star, level up. Reward: 2,000 gold, 2 C-grade iron ores, 1 C-grade leather. MVP: Jenna, 1 star. Light enveloped the forest. We returned through the rift. That was awesome! Zeeth and Hansen exchanged bright smiles and clasped hands. As we emerged, Dika, the final member of the trio, was waiting for us. Restlessly pacing in the plaza, he rushed over as soon as the rift opened, as if it were his ticket to freedom. How did it go? Well, to put it simply, it's satisfying. Zeeth grinned, his tone playful. The 3 of them greeted me with a respectful nod before entering our accommodation, walking side by side. Anything had formed a main party of 5 members, which meant that our challenge of the 5th floor was fast approaching. I had anticipated the inclusion of a 3-star member, but it seemed he hadn't considered it yet. A few days more passed.
Zeeth and Hansen exuded confidence. They actively participated in training and had become familiar with forming formations. Now, even if Jenna and I let go of their hands, they could handle the harpies and goblins quite competently. Are we heading to the 4th floor again today? I'm eager to see what lies on the next floor, Zeeth said, running his fingers along the sword-scarred surface of his shield. The rift was open. As always, we stood near the mirror waiting. It wasn't just me and Jenna. Erin, Zeeth, and Hansen also displayed a sense of calmness. Isel, yes. Today it's the 5th floor, right? Most likely. Jenna blinked, her eyes reflecting surprise. Gradually, the mirror on the left began to emit a soft glow. I braced myself for the imminent battle. Admittedly, the 5th floor posed greater challenges compared to the previous ones, but apart from a few trap missions, it could be cleared without too much difficulty. I knew all the tricks. This time, things will be a bit different. While having freedom is a good thing, too much freedom might cost you your life. Understood. I'll keep that in mind. One response carried a hint of gruffness. Climb the tower, save the world. Main dungeon, current floor 4. I let myself be enveloped by the radiant light. When I opened my eyes again, we found ourselves in an unfamiliar space. It was an urban area, a cityscape made of stone structures. This wasn't the modern style of concrete and cement. Instead, brick-laid roads and a towering central spire caught our attention.
I surveyed our surroundings. There was no message indicating the details of our mission. There was a grace period before it would commence. "Brother, there are no monsters here." "I'm aware." Until now, as soon as we were summoned, we would immediately face off against enemies. But the current situation was different. The city appeared devoid of life, and no monsters were in sight, not even a single civilian. This isn't a subjugation mission. I clicked my tongue in disappointment. I had expected it to happen at least once. "Attention, everyone. Let's head to the city center first and assess the situation. Stay in formation." The party members quickly dispersed, adhering to their training and forming a reconnaissance formation. The formation resembled a single line, with me leading the way, Aaron and Jenna in the middle, and Zeeth and Hansen at the rear. "If you notice anything suspicious, report it immediately." "Understood." We proceeded cautiously toward the city center. Looking back, the low outer walls encircling the city provided a reassuring sense of direction, ensuring we wouldn't lose our way. As we ventured deeper into the city, oddities began to emerge. Zeeth's expression grew uneasy and he swallowed hard. It wasn't just the dilapidated state of the buildings. The majority of them were either destroyed or in ruins. Debris, such as fragments of bricks and wood, obstructed the streets, occasionally forcing us to take detours. Secondly, there was an absence of people. The deserted city emanated an eerie and desolate atmosphere. Next... What's wrong? "Young, over here!" I approached Hansen, who was in a frenzy. He pointed toward the interior of a crumbling building, trembling. On closer inspection, I glimpsed a faint, ghostly figure. It was a human skull. I stepped toward the building. Or at least I tried to, but a transparent barrier blocked my path, indicating no entry. What is this place? There are buildings, but no people. Despite their usual self-assuredness, Zeeth and Hansen wore uneasy expressions. Let's continue. The road stretched toward the city center. Suddenly, near the city walls, I noticed a dark brown stain. Though it had dried and become indistinct, I could still discern its circular shape. It's bloodstains. As we neared the city center, the buildings grew increasingly dilapidated. Debris from crumbling structures and scattered human remains littered the area. This city had been ravaged. Upon reaching the central square, the scene remained the same. Collapsed structures and the absence of monsters or people. I instructed everyone to wait, and they took their positions, settling down. Jenna approached me. "This is completely different from what we've encountered before." "That was just a warm-up. The boss stages on each floor differ greatly in scale and complexity from the others. When will the enemies appear?" "Let's wait. I'm still considering." An isolated city with no enemies or allies, bloodstains and scattered skeletal remains all around, the mission notification message was still absent. I came to a conclusion. I pointed to the partially collapsed spire. "Jenna, can you climb up that spire?" "What should I do?" "Go as high as you can and see what's up there." "Sure thing." Jenna agilely began ascending the spire. With her practiced movements from navigating obstacle courses, she grabbed onto protruding bricks and ropes hanging outside windows, gradually climbing higher. "I think this is as far as I can go," Jenna called out from above. "What do you see?" "Well, the city, and..." Her eyes grew hardened. "What's there, Jenna?" Aaron shouted impatiently from below. "Well, it's the city, and I hope I'm misunderstanding." "She's not misunderstanding." "Wait, hold on. Is this safe? Can we handle this?" "Oh, tell us." "There are hordes of goblins outside the city. They seem to be heading this way." "How many are we talking about? 10, 20, 100? "Thousands." "What? What did you say?" "There are thousands of goblins heading this way." Warning. Floor 5. Mission type: Survival. Objective: survive the incoming enemies. 1,846 goblins. Level unknown. Chapter 19. Goblins. Thousands of them.
Did I really see that correctly? I wish I could say you didn't. For now, let's get down from here. After Jenna descended, I gathered the party members together. I knew exactly what needed to be done in a situation like this. I had observed and analyzed thousands of battles, including gameplay records from other players. Though it seemed impossible, there was undoubtedly a viable strategy. However, the difficulty level of this mission was remarkably high. Hyung, thousands of goblins. Are you sure it's not a mistake? How can the 5 of us... Don't panic. We don't need to face thousands of them. This mission isn't about conquering them, it's about survival. We just need to hold out against them for a certain period. But where? Zeeth stood up abruptly and rushed towards an empty house. After a while, he returned with a bitter expression. We can't enter the building. Not only that, we can't leave the city either. We have to face them here. It's not about hiding, it's about enduring. 5 of us against a goblin army? First, let's change our location. The square was not an ideal defensive spot. Streets stretched in all directions, and there were numerous entry points like cracks in the collapsed buildings. If we stayed there, we would quickly be surrounded and annihilated. The enemy had predetermined entry points, and the narrow passages would allow us to face only one goblin at a time. How long do we have to hold on for? Just 10 minutes. If we can encounter them and endure for that long, we can leave. Only 10 minutes? Then let's give it a try. There's no need to specify the exact time. It's a completely unpredictable situation. When a survival mission is assigned in a lower-level area, the party's chances of survival are only 9%. While it may not be a big concern in higher-level zones, survival missions in lower-level areas are notorious for being called hero crushers. Regardless, we will survive. We're merely on the 5th floor. If we perish here, the name of the Master of Masters would become a subject of ridicule. Move. Let's find a space where the 5 of us can block the path. Escape deeper into the city. Yes. Assuming that the place where we were summoned is in the south part of the city, the destruction becomes increasingly severe as we move north. According to Jenna's report, the goblins are also approaching from the north. Therefore, the buildings in the southern part remain relatively intact. We can't take the main road. Let's use the alleyways. The crux of this mission lay in finding a stronghold for defense. We entered an alley adjacent to the main road. The path narrowed down enough for only one person to pass comfortably. We couldn't simply accept death as our fate. Soon enough, we found a suitable space for defense. The alley split into 3 branches. It was too high for the enemies to climb, and there were no openings or crevices. Let's go this way. Although there were a few other options, some had collapsed walls, while others had low barriers that could be easily breached. We were running out of time, so finding a narrow area with a single passage open and blocked on all sides seemed unlikely. Kya! The distant sound of goblin screams reached our ears. Come together. We're going to establish our positions. Our positions? Each of us will defend a specific passage. Since the paths are narrow, we'll engage the goblins one by one, regardless of their numbers, be it thousands or tens of thousands. Can you handle that? Yes, we'll give it a try, Zeeth responded with a resounding voice. Very well, let's give it a shot. First, I'll take charge of the left passage, and Aaron, you'll be responsible for the right passage. Yes, brother. Zeeth and Hansen, you'll take care of the lower passage together. Take turns when one of you gets exhausted. Remember, you're not fighting as a group. It's all about rotation. Once you're out, don't push yourself and rest properly. Understand? Yes. I'll take the narrowest left passage. Aaron will handle the relatively wider right passage. Since he wields a spear, he'll need enough room to swing it. Jenna asked, What about me? You'll wait at the center of the crossroads. Just wait? Don't shoot arrows unless I specifically ask you to. Just wait. If you're worried that I might accidentally hit our comrades, don't be. I'm confident in my abilities. That's not the issue. We must conserve the arrows at all costs. Jenna's position was a small open area where the 3 passages converged. If Jenna were to shoot arrows from there, there was a risk of hitting our allies as well.
The person responsible for each passage would position themselves behind Jenna. With high walls on both sides, the shooting angles were quite limited. However, there was another reason for this. Anyway, conserve the arrows. Don't shoot until I give the order. Understood? Yes. Though Jenna didn't fully comprehend, she nodded in agreement. Let me share a few tips. Listen closely. Yes. First, try to move the goblin corpses forward as much as possible. Create makeshift barriers with them. The narrower the space for the enemy to advance, the better. Got it? Yes. If you're exhausted and can't hold on any longer, call for Jenna. Does that mean I should shoot arrows then? No. You should hold a dagger and stand your ground there instead. When the assigned person takes a brief rest, you'll switch with them. If it becomes absolutely impossible, then you can shoot arrows, but make sure to retrieve them, whether the person assigned to that area throws them back to you or you go and collect them. Got it. Jenna's quiver holds only 20 arrows. We have to face thousands of enemies. Arrows should only be used when absolutely necessary. Remember, if any of the 3 passages get breached, we're finished here. If we get surrounded from both sides, survival will be impossible. We'll keep that in mind. Now, let's take our positions. The 4 of them dispersed, their expressions determined. Creak! The sound of goblin growls began to echo. 30 minutes. Perhaps the flow of time in the stage aligns with that of Earth, not the waiting room. But the timer will start moving from the moment we engage in battle with the goblins. Build barricades before the goblins arrive. Understood. I piled up broken rocks and pieces of wood in front of the path. Don't waste your energy. Swift and efficient movements. Understood. Their response brought me satisfaction. We completed our makeshift barriers by stacking objects around us, forming small fortifications. As I glanced back, I saw Aaron, Zeeth, and Hansen doing the same. Kya!
Finally, the goblins had spotted us. 29 minutes, 59 seconds. Here they come.
This mission wasn't just about protecting myself. If one side got breached, everyone in the open area would be in danger. I had no choice but to trust Jenna. At first glance, her role may seem the most unnecessary, but the reality was quite different. Given the nature of this mission, we'd inevitably reach our physical limits. If Jenna didn't fill in the gaps, the defenses would crumble instantly. The goblins began to surge into the alleyway. I thrust my sword through the gaps in the stacked wood, piercing a goblin's neck as it passed. The goblin collapsed, blood flowing from its throat. "Stack the bodies! Build the wall!" I repeated the instructions so that my companions could hear. "Understood!" Then I heard Aaron and Zeeth's distant shouts, and the clash of spears continued. One strike, one goblin. We should aim for their chests or heads. So I diligently stabbed my sword through the gaps. Kee, kee, kee! The goblins also thrust their weapons through the gaps in the barricade. I blocked and countered, swiftly. Another one fell. Beyond the alleyway, on the main road, a horde of goblins had gathered, so numerous that counting them was futile. They seemed eager to get ahead, pushing and shoving each other into the narrow alleys. How foolish. Some of the goblins must have realized that the fallen bodies obstructed their path. They dragged several corpses out of the alleyway. Despite the narrowness of the passage, the goblins' small frames enabled them to do so. Kya! A goblin at the forefront thrust its weapon. It was the same frequent pattern, so I blocked and countered again. Meanwhile, a cunning goblin beneath me started dismantling the barrier. I struck its head with my shield through a gap, and blood splattered from its shattered skull. I glanced back. The other 3 thrust their blades through the gaps in the barrier, never retreating. "If it gets too tough, let me know," Jenna shouted from the open area. We still had a long way to go. I raised my sword and slashed, severing a goblin's arm. The arm flew through the air, as the goblin with the missing limb swung its other hand with sharp claws, aiming for the barricade and tearing through a leather arm guard. I thrust my sword into its head.
Immediately, the goblin behind it dragged away the corpse. Sigh, you idiots! Seriously! If they look stupid, they'll act stupid. They're gradually learning. When the front goblin dies, the others wait, and then drag the bodies out of the alleyway. Some even crouch down, gradually pushing stones or wooden planks outside. There was even one who stepped on their comrade's shoulder to pass through the passage. The path slowly opened up. 22 minutes, 58 seconds. I forgot to count the dead goblins after the 10th one. These guys are weak. They're like fledglings who would only appear on the first floor. Their bodies are emaciated and their strength is lacking. However, their numbers are overwhelming, excessively so. Kee, kee, kee. The tip of my sword tore through a goblin's eye, and it let out a desperate scream. The goblin staggered, twisting his body as it tumbled along with the others behind it. The goblins amassed on the main road showed no sign of dwindling. Did these creatures feel no fear? Reluctantly, they pressed forward, as if they had a death wish. More than half of the barricade had been dismantled. I swiftly pulled my right foot back. A goblin, squeezing its body through a gap in the barricade, struck where my right foot had been with a dagger. I swiftly drove my sword down onto its back. I looked back. On the right, Aaron efficiently dealt with the goblins, gripping his spear at a shorter length. The disparity in skill was overwhelming. So far, he'd been performing admirably. Below, Zeeth was drenched in sweat and gasping for breath. Zeeth, switch! I can still... Quiet! Switch! You rest! I'll handle it! Hansen, who had been waiting, swiftly rushed out with his sword and shield. Zeeth retreated into the open area, catching his breath. His stamina was still low. That's why I positioned Zeeth and Hansen in the same group. They not only had lower levels, but also lacked sufficient skills. Whether due to battle excitement or tension, they exerted excessive strength with each attack. They tired easily. They were still inexperienced. One well-placed sword strike was enough, one at a time. Relax the body and swing smoothly. Maximize efficiency with minimal effort. Thrust, slash, thrust again. The rate at which the corpses piled up began to outpace the goblins' clearing speed. 22 minutes, 58 seconds. Switch again, Hansen. Yeah, got it. Hansen switched with Zeeth. The barricade they were in charge of below was nearly breached. Dozens of tightly packed goblins filled the passage beyond. Some were trampled to death, but there was no sign of concern. That area was the most dangerous. I attempted to call Jenna. One person defends, while the other reinforces the barricade. Then, kee! A goblin's head appeared on the high wall of the open area. Don't let them cross over, I shouted. You got it! Ping! An arrow pierced through the goblin's head. The goblin attempting to climb over the wall fell flat onto the inside of the open area. Goblins on the other side were climbing the wall. Jenna, you handle the goblins trying to enter the open area. Understand? Got it! A goblin extended its head from the wall on the opposite side. Jenna's arrow again pierced through its forehead. Retrieve the arrows! Jenna swiftly ran to the corpse and pulled the arrow out. Meanwhile, another goblin was climbing the wall on the opposite side. If we allowed those creatures to invade the open area, we'd be surrounded. Hyungnim, didn't you say we only need to survive for 10 minutes? Dude, it's only been 5 minutes. 18 minutes, 48 seconds. Ack! Zeeth suddenly held his hand, writhing in pain. 2 fingers on his left hand had been severed, and blood spurted out.
Chapter 20. Zeeth, a 1-star hero, was bleeding. His stamina dropped at regular intervals. Switch! Zeeth, are you okay? I said switch. Don't worry about him. Block those goblins. But the passage on my left was completely blocked. Goblin bodies were propped up against the wall, serving as a temporary barricade. It should hold them off for a while. Jenna, tend to Zeeth's wounds and stop the bleeding. What about the goblins? Without hesitation, I dashed toward the open space. Just as I reached the area, I caught a glimpse of one attempting to leap off the roof. In the midst of its desperate act, its head was severed and fell to the ground. Jenna tore her sleeve with the dagger and swiftly wrapped Zeeth's wounds, applying pressure to stop the bleeding. My hand! My hand! The goblin threat is eliminated. I dragged Zeeth away from the fight. Pull yourself together, kid. Do you want us all to perish? It's only your left hand that's injured. Wield your sword with your right hand. I'm sorry, you're right. Quickly stop the bleeding and collect yourself. If you don't switch with Hansen, he'll meet his demise. Yes, understood. Jenna, return to your position once the bleeding is under control. I will. Suddenly, 3 goblins scrambled over the wall and stumbled into the open space. Reacting swiftly, I swung my sword, cleaving through the air. The upper torsos of 2 goblins within reach tilted and fell askew. The remaining goblin met its end as my shield connected with its neck, the sharp edge slicing through. Meanwhile, the makeshift barricade of goblin corpses started to crumble on the left. Some goblins even attempted to clamber over the mound of bodies. No time for cursing. I pressed my sword against the face of a goblin descending from above. The goblin met its fate, skewered on my blade, frozen in midair. On the other side, 2 goblins were making their way over the wall again. Using a sword was not ideal. The distance I needed to cover was too great, but I refused to halt. If those creatures made their way toward Aaron or Hansen, our troubles would multiply. With determined steps, I closed in on the 2 goblins, swiftly severing their throats. This time, 3 goblins emerged from various hiding spots. Aren't you over yet? We're finished here. Dee! The goblin corpses barricading the left passage collapsed, causing a flood of goblins to pour out. I'm heading back. Deal with those wretches. Yes! Jenna rose to her feet and unleashed her arrows without delay. 3 goblins stood frozen, struck simultaneously by her lightning-fast triple shots. Meanwhile, goblins that had broken through the barricade were pouring out from the left. Back inside, you scoundrels! I exerted all my strength as I struck the foremost goblin. The creature staggered and, like a line of dominoes, fell, taking down the goblins behind it. I thrust my sword forward without hesitation. Our efforts to defend the open space had consumed valuable time. Paradoxically, the left side had become the most perilous. A goblin's dagger, slipping through the gaps between the corpses, grazed the elbow of my leather armor. Had the dagger been slightly sharper, it would have pierced my bone. Swiftly, I severed the goblin's wrist. If there was an enemy still standing, I dispatched it. I refused to allow any advance. I pushed back with my shield and thrust my sword forward. 1 goblin fell, impaled through the chest, as I continued to drive it in. The goblin horde, consisting of dozens, relentlessly pushed forward. I can't penetrate with my sword! Suddenly, Hansen's urgent cry echoed through the chaos. Zeeth, can you switch out? I shouted. I'm okay, I can keep fighting. Switch with someone else. Hansen, step back and repair the sword. 14 minutes, 35 seconds. Hansen withdrew to the open space and vigorously wiped the blood-stained blade with his sleeve. Soon its true condition became apparent, prompting a deep groan from Hansen. The blade was worn down. It was to be expected. It fared better than the old F-grade iron sword, but in the end, it was just an ordinary piece of iron. I faced the same situation. Although the performance difference hadn't affected me yet, I could feel the stiffness in my blade. Even without a razor-sharp edge, I could take down goblins. I struck a goblin with my shield, snapping its neck and causing it to collapse lifelessly. Taking advantage of the brief pause, I surveyed the open space. Dozens of goblin corpses lay strewn about, and there seemed to be no immediate influx of intruders. Aaron wasn't faring well either. The barricade had long crumbled, and the goblin ranks were steadily advancing. Our thrusting speed had noticeably slowed, a visible sign of fatigue. Jenna, switch with Aaron. Yes, but I'm not tired yet. Step aside. Jenna swiftly leapt forward and slit the goblin's throat. A gush of blood erupted, staining Jenna's clothes, but she paid no mind as she continued to wield her dagger. Rest when you can. Don't be stubborn about it. Understood. Aaron slumped against the open space's wall, gasping for breath. His spear was splattered with blood, the stains reaching even the handle. 12 minutes, 35 seconds. Zeeth struggled to catch his breath, his eyes sunken. Hansen, switch out! Yes. Jenna, shoot arrows toward Hansen's position. What? But... Jenna glanced at the quiver on her back. I knew. There weren't many arrows left. Well, if they break through there, we're done. Throw rocks at the goblins if you have to. Understood. Bing! An arrow pierced through a goblin's throat. The goblin convulsed, clutching a knife in its trembling hand. That knife found its mark in Zeeth's abdomen as he tried to switch out with Hansen. Zeeth's pupils dilated. Unintelligible groans escaped from his gaping mouth. Thud. Zeeth collapsed, landing face first. Crimson blood spilled from his abdomen. Zeeth, 1 star, has fallen into a critical state. His life is in grave danger.
I clenched my teeth. This was no time for emergency treatment. If any one of us stepped out, the passage would be immediately breached. Hansen swung his sword, unaware of Zeeth's fading life behind him. Zeeth let out a faint gasp. Foamy blood mixed with his breath, trickling out. Wait! Jenna swiftly rotated her body and unleashed 4 arrows in quick succession. Each arrow found its mark on a different goblin vaulting over the wall. With that, the quiver ran dry. 8 minutes, 5 seconds. Jenna rushed to Zeeth's side. Damn it! As her dagger came down, the goblin's skull split vertically. Ugh! Even if there was time for emergency treatment, there was no solution. To pull out the knife embedded in his abdomen would unleash a gush of blood like a fountain. Jenna knew there was nothing she could do. She slowly shook her head and rose again, gripping her bow. Zeeth, 1 star, has returned to the embrace of the goddess. His unwavering spirit will be forever remembered. Zeeth, just take over for a moment. I only need 30 seconds. Just a moment. Hansen gasped, his words trailing off. But there was no one left to listen. A goblin thrust his spear. I caught it at my side and yanked it out. The long spear slid out smoothly. It had been a while since I wielded such a useful weapon. Gripping the spear with both hands, I thrust it forward. First one pierced, second one 2, third, fourth, all the way to the 6th. I poured every ounce of strength into it. The muscles in my ankles and calves flexed with vigor. I pressed on. A powerful recoil surged back. I clenched my teeth, tasting the tang of blood. The goblins in the passage began to give ground. With unwavering resolve, I drove the spear into the goblin's chest, piercing through to the handle. Squeak! I must have pierced at least 10 of them. A momentary pause befell the goblin advance. I dashed straight to the open space. Hansen, head to the left passage. I'll handle this side. Hangmen, what about Zeeth? He's resting, exhausted. No time for words. Just go. Understood. Hansen dashed off to the left. He seemed to have missed Zeeth's lifeless body on the ground. The path was blocked by a heap of goblin corpses, granting us a brief respite of 30 seconds to a minute. I flicked my sword, wiping away the sticky blood and fat. In the face of dire circumstances, the hero's spirits awaken. Drumroll. Skill awakened. Han, 1 star. Low-ranked swordsmanship has reached level 5. Han, 1 star. Pain resistance has reached level 2. Han, 1 star. Calmness has been raised by 2 levels, now at level 3. Drumroll. Skill awakened. Jenna, 1 star. Low-rank dagger mastery has reached level 3. Jenna, 1 star, has acquired the skill Swift Agility. Being hailed as a hero or sacrificing oneself meant nothing if it led to certain death. Without hesitation, I charged forward. The situation in this corridor was reaching a breaking point. Though trapped in a narrow passageway, the goblins were waiting for the balance to tip, ready to flood the open space in a relentless onslaught. I struck the foremost goblin's head with force. Despite kicking their chests with all my might, they held their ground. The goblins behind them acted as a cushion, absorbing the impact. Well then, let them die right there. I kicked and struck them repeatedly until they met their end, blood spewing from their mouths. 5 minutes, 21 seconds. Jenna gripped her dagger tightly, swiftly maneuvering across the open space. The arrows had long been depleted. The goblins, undeterred by the towering wall, surged over it one after another. Ah! Hansen, 1 star, is experiencing bleeding. Health decreases at regular intervals. A cry echoed from the left passageway. Hansen's right arm was drenched in blood, bearing the marks of a brutal slashing. The bleeding was severe, far from a clean cut. We could no longer fight back. Gather in the open space. Abandon the passageways. Strengthen the walls. The goblins had 4 entry points: the left, right, and lower alleyways, and finally the stone wall surrounding the open area. To halt their advance, we needed a minimum of 4 people. Remaining in combat readiness were myself, Jenna, and Aaron. Hangmen, what about Zeeth and Hansen? Are they dead? If you want to mourn, do it after we've survived. The path was open. Goblins flooded out onto the open space, resembling an army of ants. Jenna, Aaron, and I positioned ourselves with our backs against the north wall. I took the center, Aaron on the right, and Jenna on the left. Are we going to die here? Don't speak such nonsense.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like the video. Have a suggestion? Let me know in the comments.